Search was enough. Once. Now buyers ask AI for everything. Real questions, burning questions, questions your business was built to solve. But if your business isn't in those answers, someone else's is. HubSpot AEO shows you where you stand, who's winning, and what to do about it. Be visible, be valuable, be the answer.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Winning AI Visibility, an AEO Masterclass for showing up on ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. I am 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗃, and I will be leading today's session. So some housekeeping, we got to do it. We really want this to feel like a real conversation, not a presentation. So please drop your questions in the chat as we go, and we will get to as many as we can in our Q&A at the end. Your questions are very much what brings this to life and makes this as helpful as possible. So please ask them. And if you see a question that you want me to answer, upvote it. This is going to help us prioritize and stack rank what questions we get to first. Number one question we always get, yes, this session is being recorded. We will share the recording with you afterwards. And we're going to be running a couple of polls throughout the session. So please do participate. Not only do these help us get to know you better so we can tailor our conversation to be more valuable to you, it helps it stay really interactive. So as promised, let's start with our first poll. Do you know if your brand shows up when buyers ask AI?
Search was enough. Once. Now buyers ask AI for everything. Real questions, burning questions, questions your business was built to solve. But if your business isn't in those answers, someone else's is. HubSpot AEO shows you where you stand, who's winning, and what to do about it. Be visible, be valuable, be the answer.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Winning AI Visibility, an AEO Masterclass for showing up on ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. I am 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗃, and I will be leading today's session. So some housekeeping, we got to do it. We really want this to feel like a real conversation, not a presentation. So please drop your questions in the chat as we go, and we will get to as many as we can in our Q&A at the end. Your questions are very much what brings this to life and makes this as helpful as possible. So please ask them. And if you see a question that you want me to answer, upvote it. This is going to help us prioritize and stack rank what questions we get to first. Number one question we always get, yes, this session is being recorded. We will share the recording with you afterwards. And we're going to be running a couple of polls throughout the session. So please do participate. Not only do these help us get to know you better so we can tailor our conversation to be more valuable to you, it helps it stay really interactive throughout. So as promised, let's start with our first poll. Do you know if your brand shows up when buyers ask AI about your category? Okay, some early yeses. Interesting. See a lot of yeses in the chat. Okay, a few no's came through. Okay. So it looks like a few of you are definitely starting, more than a few of you are starting to monitor whether or not your brand is showing up in AI answers. If you haven't looked at this data, if your brand isn't showing up, or if you have, I think that this content is going to be extremely relevant regardless. So let's dive in. And I'm going to start by saying something that I think everyone on this call intuitively understands, which is probably why you're here. AI usage is growing. Yes, we all know this. But do you know how much it's growing? This is where I think it gets pretty interesting. According to this analysis from March 2026, monthly sessions of AI are now 56% the size of search worldwide. And if you put that into perspective, Google has been around for roughly 3 decades. ChatGPT has been around for 3.5 years. So this is explosive growth. And I think notably, this data comes from Ethan Smith at graphic.io. His agency is really big in the AEO space. And this time last year, Ethan was skeptical of all the claims around how quickly AI usage was growing. But now, he and his team expect the use of AI to surpass search in the near future. So, what does this all mean? When you ask customers, how did you hear about us? The answer is becoming ChatGPT. Are you ready for that shift? By the end of this webinar, my goal is to get everyone feeling like they are. As I said, I'm Asia Frost. I'm Senior Director of Global Growth and Paid Advertising at HubSpot. Maybe more interesting for all of you. Over the last few years, I have transformed our search engine optimization team into an answer engine optimization team. And I have led the strategy that has made HubSpot the most visible CRM in answer engines. But HubSpot has not just been busy building our own visibility. We have been busy figuring out how to help our customers build theirs. In October, HubSpot announced that it was acquiring XFunnel, an AEO platform that tracks brand visibility and citations across hundreds of millions of answer engine responses. Thank you for the shout outs, Melanie and Violetta, but I should say that I have an incredible team behind me who is also very much contributing to this work. And with the acquisition of HubSpot AEO, which has gone into public beta as of mid-April. You can try it free today for 28 days. We got access to some super powerful data. And so today, I'm going to share that data with you. The 7 most important things you should know about how to show up in answer engines, reverse engineered from what we saw by diving into HubSpot AEO prompts and responses. Yes, yay. There's some good stuff happening in the chat if you're not there already. Okay, before we begin, we need to level set with some vocab. AEO is how you get your business to show up in AI answers. Visibility is how often your business shows up. It's a reflection of your mentions or when your brand appears in AI answers without a link. Citations, meanwhile, are clickable sources. Both mentions and citations matter, and this is really important. Mentions build awareness, citations drive direct traffic. So we very much care about both. All right, with that vocabulary, let's dive into the insights. And the first one is one that sparks an equal mix of relief and surprise. The first insight is the blog is not dead. And you might have heard that with the decline of organic traffic, particularly to educational high-level content, the blog has lost its place in your marketing portfolio. However, do not divest yet. We looked at 14 million plus citations across Google's AI mode and AI overviews, and blogs and listicles were by far the most commonly cited page type, making up a whopping 62.1% of citations. 62.1%. That is a massive number, a massive percentage. And the question is, why? Because AI is looking for content that is easy to understand and extract. It's looking for content that helps it explain trends, opinion, analysis, and you guessed it, that information typically lives on the blog. But it is not just citations. We can look at HubSpot's logs, which are kind of like a guest book for your website. If a bot visits your site, it has to sign on the log, where it went and when. And in those logs, 19% of the time that bots are visiting our site simply to learn and train, they are going to the blog. So what does that mean? It means even if your blog is getting less traffic than before, it is a very important channel, maybe one of the most important channels for helping LLMs understand what your product is, the value it offers, and the people that it is a good fit for. And on this note, one of the most successful AEO tactics that we ran at HubSpot over the last year, this is so straightforward that it's kind of bonkers. When we saw that ChatGPT was quoting old pricing details, we published a series of pricing blog posts. And ChatGPT visited these almost immediately after we published them. And now it gives people the right prices. It's so simple. It's so straightforward. It's so important because if someone is asking about HubSpot pricing to ChatGPT or to Claude, or the LLM is volunteering that information, they are probably a very high intent lead. And it is critical that they get the right details on how much our product costs. So don't spin down your blog just yet, but it would be a mistake to approach it the same way as you did pre-AI. Which brings me to insight number 2. There is another shift happening underneath all of this, and it's probably one that as LLM users yourselves, you can see firsthand. As more and more people adopt LLMs, search is going from keywords to context. And for almost as long as Google has been Google and SEO has been SEO, the game has been about keywords. HubSpot has targeted a metric ton of these. Business name ideas, best free CRM, TikTok trends 2026. But in answer engines, queries or prompts look completely different. In one analysis of over 13,000 ChatGPT conversations, the average conversation was approximately 350 words. Compare that to about 5 words in a typical Google search. So rather than business name ideas, users are typing, "Can you please come up with more name options like that previous one, but keep it to 1 or 2 words max and 2 syllables?" And rather than best free CRM, they're saying, "Are there any CRMs I can use that aren't specific to one business so I can use the same one for my car dealership and credit repair and home rental businesses?" And rather than lead gen strategies, okay, this person is just really mad that ChatGPT is still using questions. I think that this is a funny example, but it is also illustrative of the relationship that folks have with LLMs. It's very hard to picture someone typing an irate query into Google, but they will absolutely speak irately to their LLM of choice. And that's because an LLM it is a trusted advisor to many, many folks. All of this to say, LLMs are getting so much context. And when an answer engine gets that much context, it is looking for content that is going to directly answer a pretty specific situation. That means that your content needs to get a lot more specific too, because specific content is what's going to answer the question. And we are really seeing success with content that is tailored to a specific persona and or use case. So I've shared two examples here, and these are examples of content that we probably wouldn't have published in a pre-LLM world. They're too long tail. They're not going to rank on Google for best CRM, but they are going to be cited when someone with an automotive or a car dealership asks AI what their best CRM should be. Obviously, the persona is dealership, the use case is generating leads. However, specificity is not the only important factor. The next question is, what do AI-cited pages actually look like? And from digging into the data, I can tell you content structure matters a lot. When we analyzed 10,000 URLs that are being cited in LLMs, there were a few very obvious patterns. And the first is kind of fascinating. Question-based headings. Now, that's the first row in this table because it showed the strongest correlation with citations across almost every engine, especially Google's. We saw the biggest lift in AI overviews, AI mode, and Gemini. And this makes sense if you think about how these systems work. They are literally trying to answer questions. So title questions, what is AEO instead of AEO definition? And how do I do AEO instead of AEO best practices? Because when your page already mirrors the structure of the question, it is much easier for the model to extract and reuse those answers. Now, a few other patterns also showed up that I think are worth talking about. Having an FAQ section correlates with higher citations, and an FAQ section is exactly what it sounds like. You probably already have a few on your website. It is a block of common questions and clear, direct answers all in one neat place on your page. And again, the reason that we think this works so well is because you are basically pre-packaging content in the format AI is looking for. Question, answer. Adding schema markup gives you an additional boost across most engines. And schema is just a way of labeling those questions and answers behind the scenes so machines can read them clearly. Think of it like adding subtitles for AI. You're basically removing any ambiguity about what's a question and what's the answer. Now, the last citation pattern that I want to talk about is statistics. LLMs are constantly trying to decide, is this specific? Is this credible? Is this worth repeating? And stats are going to do all three. They're going to make your content more concrete. It's trustworthier. It's easier to cite. But I see folks go wrong with this tactic quite a bit, and I'm going to explain why. You are going to get the most citations with unique data versus something that you pulled from somewhere else on the web. So when I say incorporate data into your content, I don't mean go out, find some data that's been published and linked to in 20 other places online and then just plop it in the middle of a page. That's not going to do anything for you. I am talking about business benchmarks, case studies, customer outcomes. That's what's going to make your content uniquely citable. It's stuff that you're going to have and no one else. And it is also what you care most about an LLM repeating to a potential customer. And so in this example, think about how powerful it is for ChatGPT to tell a user HubSpot customers that used Customer Agent with Help Desk saw a 25% boost in ticket resolution. That is super compelling. That's what convinces someone to go check out HubSpot Service Hub. And the benefit of collecting this type of data is you don't need some fancy, expensive market research survey. You can talk to your customers. Hopefully you are already collecting case studies, and now you can integrate that data directly into other places on your website. Okay, that was a lot in this one section, but I think the takeaway here is pretty clear. AI models prefer pages that are structured, scannable, and information/data dense. Okay, the next insight might sound familiar, but the degree of it is new. If you have done SEO, if you've kept up with SEO best practices, you will have heard it is good to refresh your old content. Keep your old content up to date. Historically optimize it is the jargony term. But AEO is going to take the importance of this tactic way, way up. Because insight number 4, freshness matters more than ever. Here's what we are seeing in the data. Answer engines rely even more heavily than Google on recent web signals. And this data actually comes from our friends at Ahrefs, but it is so good that I have to share it. The average age of ranking Google content was 3.9 years, which ironically is older than ChatGPT itself. The average age of content in major LLMs, 2.9 years. And that means that the content that AI cites is, on average, 25% more recent. The difference is starkest for ChatGPT. Content cited on ChatGPT is 1.2 years more recent. So, TLDR, when an engine decides which sources to cite, a recently updated page is a very strong signal. It's telling the model this information is probably still accurate. So another one of the very high ROI AEO tactics that is also very straightforward is consistently updating our existing pages. Now, I don't mean just putting a new publish date on it or making it 10% longer. I mean legitimately refreshing it. So updating the statistics, adding more recent examples, maybe getting a quote from an internal expert on the latest information, and then republishing. Because with AEO, recency can push you back into the citation pool. So if you remember that pricing blog post series that I mentioned, we are constantly updating that because we want to be the most current authorities on HubSpot's pricing. And that updated tag has a circle around it for a reason. It turns out that's pretty important too. In our data, we found that merely having a visible last updated date correlated with more citations across nearly all engines. So keep your content up to date and then get some extra credit by saying when you last touched it. Now, the next insight is, I think, another unexpected one. And if there is anyone out there that is still arguing that AEO is just SEO with a new letter, please, please, please share this. This is, I don't want to say gotten into trouble with this data, but I have gotten some comments of folks are really surprised at this one. Okay, insight number 5. I've built a lot of suspense here. Backlinks don't predict AI visibility. For 20 years, SEO has had a very dominant currency, and I've traded in it. It's backlinks. More backlinks has always equaled higher rankings. And I want to be clear, backlinks still matter for traditional search. So I'm not saying go out and torch your backlink profile. But when we look at what some of HubSpot's highest ranking pages on Google, which have the most backlinks, we see zero relationship with AI visibility. Pages with massive backlink profiles were not consistently cited more often by AI. In fact, some of the most cited sources have little to zero link authority. Kind of bananas. And how could this be the case? Like, this is kind of illogical, right? Well, answer engines are optimizing for a fundamentally different outcome, is the answer. Google search is trying to find the most authoritative page on the web. Answer engines are trying to find the best snippet to answer the question. So instead of asking how many backlinks does this page have, the model is asking something more like, does this paragraph answer the question clearly? And the implication of that is that content clarity and specificity are often more important than domain authority. For smaller companies, I think that's great news because there is a much more level playing field than there has been in the past. But if backlinks aren't the strongest predictor of AI visibility, then the next obvious question is, well, what does AI trust? And at a very high level, answer engines are doing two things. They're finding a clear answer, which we've covered, and then they're deciding whether or not they trust that answer. And to make that trust decision, they are going to look beyond your site. So someone asked, should I just be focusing all my AEO efforts on blog? And my answer to that would be no. Your blog is a great place to start, but that should not be the end of your AEO work. When we look at the sources that show up again and again in AI answers, then there are 3 platforms that dominate. And that brings us to insight number 6. Answer engines look for consensus. When forming an opinion, they're asking, are multiple independent sources saying the same thing? And they tend to look for that in 3 recurring places: LinkedIn, Reddit, and YouTube. If you are choosing where to build your AI authority, those should be your priorities. And there are a few reasons that LLMs prefer these 3 platforms. First, answer engines love user-generated content. It's authentic, it's usually available in mass quantities, and it's constantly refreshed. YouTube, LinkedIn, and Reddit are very rich libraries of user-generated content. On top of that, OpenAI has a partnership with Reddit. Microsoft has invested tens of billions of dollars into OpenAI and owns LinkedIn, and Google owns YouTube. So there are some symbiotic relationships happening here. We see these platforms cited constantly, especially for product comparisons and recommendations. 55% of citations for these final research questions go to these 3 platforms. And that means that if your brand never appears in YouTube transcripts or Reddit discussions or LinkedIn posts, then you are missing 3 of the most influential ecosystems feeding AI's opinions. Now, importantly, this doesn't mean spamming Reddit threads. Please do not spam Reddit threads. It will backfire. It might mean creating and moderating a subreddit for your business if it's big enough to sustain a community. I love this Christmas tree made out of Oatly milk cartons. More likely, if you work at a smaller company, then it looks like creating an account for that company that can interact in relevant forums. And what's really cool about what posts get cited from Reddit, there doesn't seem to be a relationship between audience size or engagement. And so you don't have to have a massive platform really on any of these social platforms to win citations. Your content just has to be good. So Ryan Gunn works at a HubSpot agency, participates in a ton of HubSpot-centric subreddits, often mentions HubSpot. He's been a real driver of citations for us. Thank you, Ryan. Also mentions his own agency. So I think this is a really effective example of this tactic. Could also look like soliciting feedback and stories from customers that'll serve as proof points for LLMs, not to mention the humans using Reddit to evaluate potential purchases. Also purposes. Yeah, that could work too. Okay, then let's talk about YouTube. Again, you don't have to have a ton of subscribers or get a ton of views on your videos for them to be pulled in as citations. I really love what this HubSpot customer, Travelers Auto Barn, I think this is an Australian company. I love what they're doing. They're publishing videos of the trips that their customers take. And this is serving as testimonial, it's serving as travel inspiration, and again, wonderful validation of their services for LLMs. Plus, I love their van. And then on LinkedIn, you're probably tired of me saying this, but you don't have to have a huge audience for your post to be pulled in. So the lowest hanging fruit for probably everyone on this call is encouraging your C-suite, your sales reps, your marketers to post on your company's behalf. And another really cool thing that we have found, if you are sitting here thinking, okay, that's good that I don't have to have a ton of followers, but this still sounds like a lot of work. When we are active in these communities, mentions of HubSpot go up across the board. And this actually makes sense if you think about it, because by reminding people of your presence, they are more likely to talk about you. So we'll say one thing, and then we'll generate like 3 or 4 more comments in other places. You are creating essentially this flywheel where your activity has a compounding effect. All right, this brings us to our final insight, and it's probably the biggest mindset shift of all. Because most of us, certainly myself, we're trained to think about performance in snapshots. So rankings today, that leads to traffic this month, that leads to demand this quarter. And that mental model starts to really break in AI search because visibility in AI is much less fixed than in traditional search. Answer engines aren't retrieving this relatively static list of results. They're generating answers each time. And so that means volatility. And here's what that volatility actually looks like. On average, about 48% of cited URLs change every single month. That's this. Nearly 60% show up once and don't show up again the next month. And within 6 months, the majority of what you are seeing has shifted. Okay, what about mentions? You remember the vocab. You're like, okay, citations is one thing. What about mentions? Even if the sources that an LLM is citing changes over time, do the businesses it's highlighting stay pretty constant? And there's a little more stability there, but not much. AirOps did a similar analysis, but for mentions, and from one answer to the next, only about 30% of brands stay visible. The same question, in other words, can produce different answers with different sources every time. In a volatile system, moments don't matter, trends do. So the real question is not, did we show up today? The thing to do is not to go to ChatGPT and ask about your industry and take a screenshot and send it to your boss if ChatGPT mentions you and X out if it doesn't and never mention it. You need to look at how you are showing up more over time. And that is exactly what tools like HubSpot AEO are built for, which is tracking your visibility across many prompts, many engines over time so you can see what's working. So yes, AI search is volatile, and that can be intimidating to say the least. But the teams that win are the ones that are going to measure it correctly and then improve directionally. All right, I've given you a lot of data. It's actually 7 insights, 32 data points, and 8 charts. And as promised, I want to give you a checklist. And I really wanted to take all of those insights and make it super actionable, so you left feeling like you knew what to do to improve your visibility. So let's go through these. First, if you don't already have an AEO tool, you need one. Michelle, this answers your question about tracking mentions over time. I, of course, am partial to HubSpot's AEO tool. And here you are going to upload the prompts that your buyers are asking AI. Remember, context, not keywords. Now, you might not be sure how to format those questions or what they should be. That's normal. This is a new way of thinking about tracking questions or prompts. And HubSpot does a really cool thing. It will analyze your website and your competitors to help you find the best ones. Second, rewrite your top 5 pages. And these are the pages with the information that you most want AI to crawl, understand, and cite. So think your About Us and your customer testimonial pages. Turn your headers into questions. Add an FAQ section, an FAQ schema. Add a last updated tag, incorporate unique data, and make sure everything is as recent as possible. You are serving your content up to AI on a silver platter. Third, publish 5 use case / persona pages. I think I've made my point here around keywords to context. So instead of top CRM, it's top CRM for real estate investors. Instead of best rental camper van, it's best rental camper van for traveling the Gold Coast with your family. Generic content, it's not going to match the question. Specific content will. Fourth, show up where AI looks for consensus. Pick YouTube, Reddit, or LinkedIn. You don't have to tackle all 3 at once, just pick one, and create a content plan. Remember, it's not about the size of your audience, it's about the quality of your content. So once you have a plan in place, start to post. And lastly, measure visibility over time. Train yourself and your leadership to think about visibility directionally. Because with answer engines, you're not going to win by being number 1 once. You're going to win by being consistently present. The shift to answer engines, I think it's clear, it's happening. The question is not whether your customers are going to use them, it's whether they find you when they do. So before we move into the FAQ, which I'm excited about because y'all have been dropping some great questions in the chat, we're going to do a quick poll. If you would like a personalized demo of HubSpot AEO, then please let us know by voting now. We're going to leave this open for a bit in the chat while we go through the questions. And of course, I'm biased, but so many of the insights that my team discovered while running our AEO playbook have made its way into the product. I'm super proud of it, and I think it's a really powerful tool. Okay, now I think we're going to move into Q&A.
We sure are. Hi, everyone. I'm going to jump in and join Asia here. I'm Mia. I work in our marketing team in APAC. Asia, I'm going to kick us off. Luke has a really important question. He needs to know if the bamboo on your shelf is real or Lego.
It's a Lego. Yeah. I've gotten really into the Lego flora and fauna. So, maybe next webinar, you'll see some more up there.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that solved, there are so many fantastic questions. So I'm going to kick us off with one. It came through a lot in the chat in many different ways, and you've touched on it, but a lot of this is around what contributes to AI visibility. There's questions around blogs, around LinkedIn, around Reddit, around owned and offsite sources. How do you think about what marketers should prioritize and what their AEO strategy should include?
Yeah, that is a great question. The answer is both. So start with your website. That's your foundation, and it's also the easiest to directly control. If you notice that ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the LLMs are saying something that is incorrect or missing context about your brand, correct the truth on your website. You can do that near immediately. Then once you have that foundation in place, you need to think about reinforcing it by going I would definitely start with the big three for obvious reasons. And making sure that your messaging and your brand strengths are being reflected in those places as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I've probably got a bunch of follow-ups, which I think slot in really nicely under that one. So let's start with how you think about, there's a few questions here around your blog pages versus your core website pages and the difference they have in the impact on AEO.
Great question. I will say, and maybe this is controversial, but I think we kind of overthink the difference. We've had debates on my team about, should this live on the blog? Should this live on the website? And I think the answer is, you want to make sure it's easy for an LLM to find. And so we know that LLMs visit the blog a lot. And so it's a good place to put educational content of any nature, whether it's explicitly about your brand or not. That being said, if it's a page that you really want humans to be able to easily find too and come back to many times, that's probably a good case for putting it on your website. So I'm thinking about something like a customer testimonials page. I probably wouldn't put that on the blog because that's a pretty evergreen page that you're going to want humans to be able to discover very easily.
Yeah, I love that. And everyone who's asked questions around this, hopefully that answered a bit of the question. Let us know if it didn't. Okay, still on blog questions. How do you think about, and are we seeing differences between AI created or AI assisted content versus human handcrafted content and what's really ranking? And maybe some insight. I know we think about this a lot internally and your team do. What are you seeing in the team and what they've tested over time?
Yeah, this is also a fantastic question. Different data has shown different things. So some studies have come out saying that Gen AI content doesn't perform as well. Others have found that there is very little difference. And I think there is variation by engine that's probably worth paying attention to. I think that Google, probably unsurprisingly, tends to deprioritize pure Gen AI content more than, say, a ChatGPT. That being said, HubSpot uses a lot of Gen AI to create content. We never just press publish. So there's a human in the loop constructing the system to generate the pages, making sure that all the data that goes into the pages and feeds the content is really strong and well tailored. And then there is a human reviewing the output, editing, tweaking. And I truly think that that is the most effective approach. It allows you to create content at scale, which is necessary when you're creating all of these very long tail pages, but it ensures that the caliber of the content is still high.
Yeah. Okay, great. I've got handwritten notes here, team, because there's so many questions on the page. We also have a couple of questions, and you talked a lot about recency and the importance of recency and frequency in your updates. There are a few questions here on how do you tell AI when you've changed your content? You know, do you have to ask it to crawl? Is it automatic? Is there anything that we do internally that you would advise our audience also adopt?
Yeah. So there is definitely an element of explicitly telling AI that you updated the page, which is why I think we see the citation boost when you have that last updated date. That being said, Google crawls pages often, and so has a basically mathematical understanding of how much of your page has changed from crawl to crawl. And the other LLMs are built on, they use Google systems to kind of find information. So that was a pretty jargony technical answer, but if I could shorten it, it's yes, they can tell, but go for the full shebang and add that last updated date to make it really clear.
Yeah. So be explicit. Don't leave yourself open here. Okay, hang on. Let me check. Have I got any more blog questions? I think I do. Well, actually, these ones go. I'm going to ask a couple more around how we know, and then I'm going to shift into some non-owned channel questions. So one of them coming through, which I love, this is a perfect question for you. How do you analyze the ChatGPT questions that people are asking? Like, how do we know what people are asking in AI search?
Yeah. So none of the LLMs are sharing as of yet prompt volume. So how many people are asking each specific question. Now, just yesterday, Google announced that in Google Search Console, they will start sharing your site's performance in Gen AI functionality. So that means AI overviews and AI mode. And that is going to be super, super powerful data. I'm really excited about it. If you use HubSpot, I highly encourage you to connect your Search Console account to HubSpot so that you can start to close the loop between visibility, at least in Google surfaces, and conversions and revenue. And HubSpot AEO is a really great overlay to that. But in lieu of getting that volume, and we still don't have it for ChatGPT, HubSpot can infer what your buyers are likely asking by using their CRM data, which is a really cool thing that none of the other AEO providers on the market can do right now. So I'll try to TLDR it. Too long, didn't read. We are, I think, building towards a world where we will have prompt volume. In the interim, then a tool that gets context from your CRM is going to be your best bet for understanding what your buyers are actually asking.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was hoping you'd tee that up. So there we go. Okay. And then I think you've asked and answered this one, but it's a quick one, and I want to make sure everyone hears it. How do you track when your brand is being mentioned in AI?
Yeah, you're definitely going to need a tool for that. The do it yourself manual check is not going to be sufficient. So HubSpot AEO, if you if you haven't heard of it, there is a free trial, 28 days. Oh, Christine, you and I are on the same wavelength. It's a 28-day trial, completely free. You can track up to 50 prompts. Highly, highly recommend taking it for a spin. And we haven't even talked about recommendations, which is a feature within the tool that looks at all of the mention and citation data across all the prompts you're tracking and turns it into very actionable things that you can do immediately to start improving your visibility. So,
yeah.
good stuff.
I love that, right? It's like taking like, here's what's happening, here's the diagnosis, and here's what you can do about it, all on the platform. Okay, I'm going to shift to, there's a few questions here around YouTube and LinkedIn. The first one, which is, how do you think about, and do we know how LinkedIn blogs perform comparative to blogs on your own site? Are they just part of the overall contribution that LinkedIn content has?
Yes. So we see LinkedIn Pulse and posts get the most citations out of LinkedIn content, and LinkedIn is one of the top cited domains across the board. And so I think that goes back to the question that we kicked off with, which was, how do you think about owned versus offsite content? And so I would say if there's something that you really care about broadcasting to AI, then it should be on both your blog and it should be on LinkedIn. It's not either or, it's both.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And a couple of YouTube questions. And you've got your own YouTube starring channel, so I'm sure this is something you spend a lot of time thinking about. How, what's the difference between, in terms of AI search with shorts versus longer form YouTube, as the first part, and then the second part is transcripts, and what level of impact they have. If someone's thinking about LinkedIn, do transcripts need to be like a core part of their strategy?
Yeah. Whoever asked the shorts versus long form question, good on you, because that's a nuanced question. I was actually
with the Lego.
What?
That's your friend Luke with the Lego question.
Oh, I should have known. Okay. So interestingly, I will be honest, I haven't done a super deep dive into the frequency of shorts versus long form, but I was just looking at our data yesterday, and I specifically filtered to YouTube content, and I think the third or fourth most cited YouTube link was a short. So take from that what you will. I would not, it's not a it's not a comprehensive analysis by any means, but I'm definitely seeing shorts pop up.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
And how about the transcript side of things? Do they need to be?
Yes. So the AI is not watching the video. It is using the text associated with the video. So the title, the description, and then the transcript. And so that's what, when you're thinking about what an LLM is going to be ingesting, it's going to be those components.
Awesome. Okay. We have like maybe one more question, maybe two. If you all didn't know, Asia's joining us from Boston, so it's getting really late for her. But Asia, I know you know this. ChatGPT ads came into Australia recently, and Nicole's got a question here on like, how does that change the landscape? How does all of this fit together now that advertisers can run sponsored and paid ads in ChatGPT?
Yeah, super exciting. My team was one of the ChatGPT beta advertisers, and so we've been experimenting with it for a few months. I think, what is really powerful is when you can be both in the organic response and then you can run an ad, because you get that double whammy of, the user sees you twice, and now they're much likelier to click. So I think that that's one kind of immediate takeaway for us. So like, we're seeing some outsized gains when we can be in both places. Now, I think it's also worth saying that this is a very nascent channel. And so user behavior is going to change over time. The things that we'll be able to do with ChatGPT ads are going to change a lot over time. So nothing, I'm very open, I think, to our strategy evolving. I guess the other really interesting thing that I didn't necessarily expect was we're seeing a lot of the higher level educational ads do really well. And my expectation would have been that if you can get that on ChatGPT, why would you leave? But it seems like people do. They are willing to engage and curious about educational content. Like I'm talking like ebooks. Yeah, we're seeing success with ebooks on ChatGPT ads. I just didn't think that I was going to be saying that sentence in 2026. So there's a lot of stuff to experiment with. I think we're at the very beginning of figuring out the channel, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
That's what we love about marketing. I think I didn't expect webinars to go off again, and here we are, and newsletters have the same thing. I have one final question for you. We've had a few questions around Anthropic and Claude and why we're not covering that, and maybe how we think about that LLM in our tooling.
Yes.
If you can answer it. Yeah.
Great question, and one that I have gotten before. We prioritized LLMs by market coverage. So between Google's AI services and ChatGPT, that is the vast majority of what the market is using. That being said, we have heard that Claude is an important LLM that people want to track. So no promises, but we've heard that need loud and clear.
Amazing. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to let Asia log off and eventually go to bed. Thank you, Asia, so much for joining us, for staying up late, and for bringing your expertise to our Aussie and Kiwi market here. We really appreciate it.
This was a blast.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Okay. Bye.